how amazing for each of us that we get to be here on such a momentous night that these two will remember for the rest of their lives. Such a beautiful and special occasion. And if we're lucky, as I'm sure we will all be, that this will be such a beautiful and special night that we'll all remember for the rest of our lives. And just to be a part of that is amazing. But let's remember why we're here. Brian and Kristen have decided to spend the rest of their life together, and who are we to stop them? So we should be here and support them. I remember when I first met Brian, and his cousin over there, John Wilbanks, was my neighbor, and we used to play out in the field, and we couldn't stand each other. At least that I got the vibe of that, for he kept making up rules to football and basketball and that I had never heard of, and I'm pretty sure the NFL doesn't back to this day. But it was all because of that and his relentless attitude to be friends that it just happened. And he just kept popping up in pockets of my life that I just couldn't avoid. But it was through working together at Six Flags over there in our awful bumblebee shirts that we really started to grow together in our adolescent years, and then on to becoming rock stars and playing with a Wayward Heart and Me and the Wax Intellectual and Your Friend Photosynthesis, throwing out band names like you all know what they are, but obviously you don't, or we'd be making tons of money and Kristen would be very much happier, I'm sure. I'm kidding. But so one specific example of how awesome Brian is, and therefore how awesome both of these two are, is I remember being in the studio with Brian and recording music and spending an hour on about 6 frames of music, because he's a perfectionist, as I'm sure Kristen's well aware of by now. And it sounded the same to me, but he had to get it exactly right. And I feel that's the perfect simile for how our friendship has been, because he kept hammering at these years of our friendship until it was exactly how he would want it to be, and then by therefore how I would want it to be, or how I could just squeeze into it. It sounds way better in my head, I think, than saying out loud, but it's just awesome in his way. But there's one quote that from a shared favorite author of his and I's, Douglas Adams, said, "I may not always end up where I intended to go, but I'm always where I needed to be." And I think that perfectly sums up with, you don't know who you're going to meet when you go out to play with some neighbor kid in a neighborhood, or ask a girl out on a date, and then you realize that she is who you needed and he is the friend you needed. And all I can say is, what we can all say is that we wish these two the best, and that they spend the rest of their lives together being happy and little perfectionists and relentless and wonderful. So here's to you two.